Buenas noches a todos los que están ahorita.
Good afternoon, good evening to everybody. My name is Angie Sanchez. I'm the new director of the program for Corazon Healdsburg. I'm very excited that we're all here today, this evening. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what this is. This Conversación is why we're here tonight. We want to give you a safe space to talk about important topics, how they affect our community, and actions that we can do together. So our goal is to include everybody, to exchange information, experiences, to express our opinions, and to build a community. Like I mentioned, to have this space for us so we can to work on equality issues. This evening we will talk about issues that have to do with what are things right now in schools, what is the current situation. We want to talk about how you can help us, how you can support us. But before we do that, I'd like to tell my colleague Lisbeth to tell us a little bit who is Corazon Hillsburg. Who is it? But thank you very much, Angie. Thank you to everybody who's here without the panelists. Thank you very much to those of you who are here today on Facebook, on Zoom Live. Basically, Corazon Healdsburg is an organization, a nonprofit organization, and the objective that we have is to help our community to decrease, to make the racial divide disappear that's in the community, in the schools. And we do it through various programs. We have programs that are educational nature. We have also programs that are for teenagers, for adults, or even for babies. And what we're working on right now is trying to do recognition at the community level of how important the census is. The census is very, very important right now because schools and different institutions have had reports before because of this pandemic. So it's really important to be heard, to be counted during the census, and that's what Corazon Healdsburg is working on this project. So thank you very much for being here, and welcome everybody to this conversation. Like I mentioned earlier,
a link on our Facebook event page that you can click that will take you directly to be able to view the conversation and listen to it live with the live translation. Una vez más, mi nombre es Angie Sanchez.
Again, my name is Angie Sanchez. We're here this evening to talk about personal experiences, to share resources for parents to get more involved with their students, with school, and to talk about how the school districts can support and include ethnic diversity at locally level. We know the schools can affect our students in many ways, and we want to be more inclusive in general. In terms of our students, we want to be more inclusive. We know that the last years, the school district has been really criticized because of the racial divide in different schools. So it's come under fire because of that. So we know that there has been a change, also because the National Equity Foundation has helped us effect some change. They came with services for cultures, for competencies, for the school districts. The parents had meetings, were able to talk about their experiences and how they have been affected by that, them and their students on an academic level, and also on an emotional level and academic level, and how they felt in our communities. So we know that this was the beginning of a conversation. So we're still here because we want to continue the conversation about what is happening and how can we work together to improve this schools, how we can improve that to support our students better. But before we do that, I'd like to be able to introduce our panelists who are here with us today, starting with the director of the school district, the superintendent, Mr. Chris. How are you doing, Chris? I'm well, thank you. My name is Chris Van Hotel. I'm the superintendent of Healdsburg, here at the public schools in Healdsburg, and I'm very excited to be here tonight. Thank you so much for organizing this conversation. It's very important in our community that we do so. I'd like to say that I also live here. I'm a father of two children who go to high school here at Healdsburg High School. I'm here because, well, to talk and to share, but more than anything, I'm here to listen. And again, I'd like to say thank you for having this conversation. Thank you for being here with us tonight. We also have here Mr. Ever Flores. He's a school counselor in Hillsburg, a school counselor, and he's also the president of HATA. How are you doing, Mr. Flores? Good afternoon. Hello to all the panelists and to all the people who are here with us today listening. Like Angie said, I'm the president of the teachers union, and here in Hillsburg, and I represent all the teachers of starting the kindergarten all the way through high school. I've been a counselor for 20 years, a school counselor. I was a counselor for elementary school children, for middle school children, and also for high school students. So, I have spent more than 20 years of my life in this district and to the students, and I've been here for a long time, and I've enjoyed the work tremendously. We also have Mustafa Tolusa. He's a former student, and he's also a resident here in Hillsburg. Mustafa, how's it going? How are you? Hello, everybody. My name is Mustafa Tolosa. I was born here in Hillsburg. I lived in Mexico for some time as well. I always go back and forth between Mexico and here. So in my company, I help a lot of Hispanic companies. I'm always talking to them and talking to the community, the Latin community. Perhaps you've seen me in different radio programs and whatnot, different programs. I have two children. We have a business in winter and I have two business online as well. And it's nice to see all of you. And thank you so much for having me here tonight. Looks like it's frozen, huh? Hello, can you still hear me? Hello. I think we'll keep on going with the introductions after Mustafa. Crystal, could you briefly introduce yourself so we know who you are, please? That would be great.
Gracias, se me olvidó.
Thank you. I forgot that I was muted. Hello, my name is Crystal Lopez. I've graduated in 2015 from high school, Healdsburg. Before I went to other schools. When I was in third grade, I came to Healdsburg and I graduated from the schools in Healdsburg. I went through Fridge Mountain, South Grade. I went to junior high there. And the last one, which was high school. So I just finished university. I just graduated. I have my bachelor's degree in Chicano Latino Studies and in Spanish as well. I just graduated. And also sociology. Sorry, I forgot to say sociology as well. Thank you, Crystal. And let's keep on going with Carla. Go ahead, Carla. Hello, thank you very much. Good afternoon. After to everybody who's here tonight with us. My name is Carla Gomez Pelayo. I was born in Mexico and I grew up in Napa, almost next door to all of you. I'm a community organizer in terms of immigration issues, supporting our undocumented communities, and as well to try to have more ethnic studies here in the Napa Valley area. I've finished my degree at California, Berkeley, UC Berkeley, and ethnic studies and Chicano studies. I also identify as being Chicana. I'm very proud of it. Through the last 4 years, I've been working and I've been developing a program here locally here in Napa. It's called Legacy Project, and it's a project that supports students from 6th grade until through 12th grade, and it's an ethnic studies. I define that as being a focus really on the culture and also on the political issues as well. So I'm here to learn, to share our successes, and also to learn to listen to what the vibe is right now. What's this current situation? How can we improve things? So thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much for being with us here tonight. Before we start with the questions, I'd like to remind those who are listening to us right now, it's very important as well that you participate. That's important to us. If you'd like to ask a question or if you'd like to tell us a little bit about your experience, we invite you to do that, to put the comments on Facebook or send us a quick message, or if you want to be activated, send us a message, Facebook message, and Also, it could be a private message. And those on Zoom here, you can send us a message through the chat box. And so this conversation is not just for us, for those of us here on camera, it's also for those of you who are here at home listening to us. You're all welcome. You're all welcome to be part of this conversation. That's so important for our students and for our families and for the community as well. So let's start. Let's start with the first question. The first question being the following. How do you feel? Do you think there is still a racial divide in academic in the schools here at local level? Including, we want to know also, what do you think about, how do you feel about online learning that's been available now for students during this coronavirus crisis, and that's been something that's been working, something that's not been working? We'd like to know from you, for you to tell us on the district level what has happened, how has it worked for students and for the parents and other students perhaps. How do you feel? How do you feel about all this, about this issue? Again, do you feel that there's still a racial divide and academic divide in our schools? That's the question. Do you feel like that still exists? Well, I'm also, in addition to working at Corazon, I'm also a mom, and I have children in the district, and I can say that there is worry. Yes, there's some disadvantages for our Latin community. We don't have a lot of access to technology, so the parents of our students don't really know how to work technology much, and our children are often home alone trying to figure out how to get in touch with with their teachers and their classes, and that's a disadvantage. In addition, there's areas where you don't have good internet, so the children have to take turns in order to share the internet, so that means lost time for them. For some of them, instead of being able to study, they have to wait their turn of their little friends. So I think there's definitely disadvantages, and the schools have tried to improve it, but there's still some work to be done. It's true. Since the beginning of coronavirus, when this all started, when we had to close down, we were better prepared than other districts, but we did not have enough mobile devices for the students. We thought we did have enough, but turns out we did not. We're short some 40 or 45 devices. So in addition to that, I know that Greta is here with us today. She's here. And if you live outside the city and the valleys and the outside valleys, it's difficult. It's difficult, even if you have a mobile device. So definitely there is absolutely, in terms of learning, online learning, there are some disadvantages, yes. And also, when we're at school, then we also have some disadvantages. We notice that every time we get together with a school board, that our data about learning, for sure, you can tell, it's obvious that there's a lack of grades, a difference in grades for Latin students and other students, and that's something that we're trying to improve, and that's we want to eradicate that. We want to eradicate that lack of equality. We want to erase it, but this is a difficult job, and with the help of Liz and the parents, we're going step by step. We're taking it step by step to help us improve. The question is if there's an ethnic or an academic divide, really. Well, I have noticed that there is a division, an academic, yes, in Healdsburg. Unfortunately, that's something that really we have to deal with. This is something we have to work on without being scared of it. We have to talk about it. We have to say things as they are, things that have happened here for a long time. And I want to thank to Corazon Healdsburg. Thank you very much for having started this conversation. It's a very difficult conversation, which for many of us, it's very difficult who we work and we live here in Healdsburg. It's difficult, and it's great to have it started. This division is technical divide, so to say. It's a reality. It got worse with the virus, COVID-19, And yes, as Chris said, we were a little bit more prepared than other districts, but we still saw that this is gonna be a long time, and who knew that it would be closed for that long. We did we had knowledge that we didn't have enough machines, or technical, but we were hoping that we come back 2 or 3 weeks, but that's not what happened. So we didn't have enough technical supplies. So we saw a lot also in terms of students that they would not really connect with their teachers, and the responsibility fell on them, on the parents who are working or who they don't know how this all functions with the devices. They don't really know how that works, and it's something that we have to really analyze very closely if we want to open schools back up in a way that's so that we can use the internet, really, because we noticed that a lot of students, especially the Hispanic students, would not connect to their teachers to receive the weekly instructions that they're supposed to get. So for any reason, they were working perhaps with their families or whatnot. Others were at home helping take care of younger children. So we noticed that this division was quite drastic during this time. Unfortunately, the district and the union, the teachers union, we have worked together. We have made agreements to make sure that the students wouldn't be victimized here, and that they wouldn't be victims of bad grades because of COVID-19. So what we did was we decided to hold harmless, but we decided that we decided to see how we can do to make sure that the students would not be that they, in case they had like technological issues, that they wouldn't be completely affected negatively by this. As you know, we have had the union, the teachers unions, and the district. Sometimes we don't quite get along, but I would like to thank the school district because we did reach an agreement in order to improve this for our students. But yes, there are a lot of things that we still have to talk about, and to tell things as they are, to make sure that we keep on going forward without any of these obstacles, because, well, we are here to serve the community and the people that are our clients, so to say, right? That we're here to serve them. I just want to say thank you to Ever, because in the conversation we had about how we were gonna do grading of students during the coronavirus times, whenever we talk about these things, we sometimes it's a bit hard. It's a bit difficult, and Ever, since he's the head of the union here, he was a great leader. He really helped us to make sure that we had this vision of equality in terms of the grading. So thank you ever so much, and I completely agree with everything that he just said. That was a big thing that we did, and it's been a big thing in the last 3 months. So thank you very much for all the work. What I do want to say as well, and I think it's been very public, that the teachers union and the district, we almost went on strike because we just were not coming together in a lot of things. But when, like we say, it came to this point, to this situation, really both the school board, the school district, and the union, we really agreed that we had to do something. We had to talk about how to improve our students' experience, and then they had to realize that we always had the students in mind. That's what's important. And even even if we're in the middle of negotiations that perhaps are a little contentious, perhaps we have these contentious negotiations, perhaps, but we still were able to move this forward, where we're still basically fighting each other, or we had difficult, yeah, I guess you could say we had difficult conversations, but the important thing is that the students are the most important thing. That's why we're here. That I just wanted to add that right now. I'm sorry. Outside there's some noise. They're just doing some fixing out, and sometimes internet comes and goes. So hopefully that won't happen again. My internet's kind of coming and going. I don't know if I finished asking my question to Mustafa. Though maybe if you can tell us a little bit about his experience as a student and then now as an entrepreneur. Yes, I wanted to talk to you about that because everybody's talking about the same thing about COVID-19, but there's two different things that I will have to talk about. Two different things. There's things that we do here on purpose and that we don't do on purpose. If we do something not on purpose, in my opinion, that's not racism. But there's different things that we do that's racism. Just to say, what happened in Hillsburg Elementary, that is racism. So, in my opinion, sometimes we have these stereotypes, right? These stereotypes are not bad, but if somebody takes action and takes resources away from somebody else, then is when things change. It's not racism per se until you take resources away from the person. And there's many different ways that we can take resources away from people. And we can talk about that different time. But in terms of schools, what happened at the elementary school when they separated the kids, that was racism for sure. What's happening now with COVID-19, that's, in my opinion, really, it feels more like it's a problem of issue, and it's an economic issue, a money problem, that there isn't enough money to go around. And it's too bad that it's very sad that people who don't have a lot of money oftentimes are Latinos, but I don't think that the superintendent is doing that on purpose, or the school board is doing that on purpose. It's just unfortunately that the people are low income, oftentimes tend to be Hispanic, Latino in our area here. What happened at Hillsburg Elementary when they separate the kids, because when I came at Hillsburg High School, because I went to school almost my entire life in Hillsburg High School. And it was completely different back then. It was like we always just say, I always talk to everybody. It was like two different schools, really. It was the Latinos that had their school, and that they had their popular people and their popular kids, and they had their girls, that they're pretty girls, that they're pretty guys or good looking guys. And then on the other hand, I don't want to say white people or blonde people, but I just want to use the word American. So the American people, technically, you're American, whatever, but like the Americans, let's say, they had their own little group, and it was really unusual for these words to cross. But it was almost like having two schools that are completely separate back then. And also, one of the things in terms of education, that starts at home. So if parents do not have the time or the money that are necessary, and they don't have the resources that are necessary to help their kids, then their kids are going to, it's going to be less probable that they go to university or school, right? So let's say high school, I can guarantee you that ever sent more children, American children, to AP classes than Mexican kids. It's not because Ever is racist. It's just because that's how things were happening. Perhaps those kids had better education back at home, and their parents could help them better, and perhaps they had better resources. And what happened now at Healdsburg Elementary, I took a tour of that school. They have good schools there. I don't have anything bad to see about that at all. It was very good, but it was like two different worlds, so to say, two separate worlds. But the teachers, they treated us all the same. It was like that. And now I have my kid. I was gonna put him in there. It was a private school. When I went to sign them up. They told me, we're gonna send you on a tour. We're gonna send you on a tour of Hillsburg Charter School. Do you want to have your kid in Hillsburg Charter School? I'm not saying those people that are working there. I'm just talking about not the administration per se, but there was like 2 or 3 people who were doing that, and they said, you're affluent. They thought I was an Arab and that my wife was Asian. So they told me, yes, send your kid here. You can come here. And then when you're not busy at work, you can donate your time and do some volunteer hour here. You can do this here and here and here. And I said, well, hey, I want to see Hillsburg Elementary as well. I want to tour that as well. And they said later to me, no, you don't want to see that. You should send your kid to Hillsburg Charter School. And I said, no, I do want to see it. Why don't you want me to go see the other school? And they said, well, because at Hillsburg Elementary School, there's a more traditional education. And I said, I went to school in Coverdale. I mean, I was quite traditional there. So I went into the classroom where all the kids was. It was dark. Everybody was on their tablets, and then when they're all really quiet, it was like a different world. Even though the classes were right after, then when I left, and the way I am, I don't care. I tell things the way they are. I told this lady, "How's there all those Mexicans in there?" And she said, "Well, because the parents." And she was started giving me a bunch of excuses. And I said, how did this happen? And I told her, what happened is that the people has money in Healdsburg. They're sending their kids to the private schools, because I did not want them to go to school with Latins, with Chicano, with Latin people. So what we did, the Healdsburg charter school, to have this private school, so rich people can send their kids there to this school. So what happened was then, so that's how these things happen. So we have certain hours that we have to go as parents. We have to go there. And I said, you know what, to the lady, and I don't want to be speaking too much. I know we only have 1 hour. I told to the lady, you know what? So I'm not gonna let my kid go to the school where they feel like they're better than Mexican. I'm not gonna let him go to a school where where they where they feel they're fewer American people, So I said, I'm not gonna let him. So that's why my child is in the private school still. I had that option. My mom with me, she never had that option. So that's when the things changed to racism, right? So what we're seeing there is racism. It's not really, it's nothing that has to do with an economic issue. Well, there's a little bit of an economic issue, a little bit, because parents have to chip in, and parents have to really be donors to the school in order to make things happen. And parents, they were using it as an excuse to have Latins, to exclude Latins for people to not join. So Hillsburg Elementary, they said it was a Mexican school, and then they were saying that Hillsburg Charter was a white school. So that's what they're saying. So all I did is, before this was popular, before we started talking about this, I put that on Facebook. I put my entire experience up on Facebook. I published it, and I think Healdsburg Patch or Tribune or whoever, they're the only ones who talked about that before. I told everybody. I said this was before Black Lives Matter, and then people started to tell me things. Even my Latin friends, my Chicano friends kept on saying, why are you complaining? Your kid's gonna go to charter school. I said, well, that's not the problem. The issue is that I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like if you're that kid. You're that kid when I was in their shoes. So the lady, just one more thing, I told the lady, is this an ESL class? If it's an ESL class, well, then I understand it. She's like, no, it's not an ESL class. It's just the Mexican kids in this class. So that was my experience that I had, and that, and yes, I'm gonna let you talk now, because I could be doing this talking to you all day. Thank you, Mustafa. It's good to hear different perspectives, different people from their experiences. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. Thank you for your experience, your situation. I appreciate that. And now we know these two schools have been combined. It's not only one school, so that's a way to start. It's a way to start to fight racism a little bit. But my question is, for the school district, for Chris, for example, what has been done for students that went 5 years to school, for example, and now that they're going with other students in these other classes? What has been done for those students to be the same level, for them to feel that they're part of the school? Because we know that sometimes you could feel that perhaps you're not welcome, or perhaps that you feel that you're not the same level academically, perhaps that they feel badly, perhaps. What kind of support is there for those students that are now in that school that's now being combined into one? Well, first of all, there's two different things that you're asking. The one is academic, and the other one is an emotional issue. So first, academically, we have had various programs, especially in the summer, to support those kids, those children who are a little bit behind, perhaps, especially in sciences and especially project-based learning. Project-based learning, which is very, very important. There is more to be done still. We were going to have a program this summer, but with coronavirus, we didn't want to do this right now with Zoom with the kiddos. There's much more work to be done. And then in addition, Mr. Mustafa was talking earlier about this division, about this divide that happened when he was in Hillsburg High School. I came to ser director after Hillsburg High School. I think it was 2011 or something when I became director, and I noticed it very quickly as well. Even though it's improved, there's still a division, a divide, and that's another issue that we have to deal with as a school. How can we unify our community? How can we bring it together? And perhaps the schools can be the leaders. And it was a focus of the National Equity Project in our talks that we've had. And there's much more to be done. Like we noticed, well, like a week or so ago, there have been experiences that is similar to what Mr. Mustafa just talked about earlier. That those things should never happen in the first place, and there's still a lot to be done.
I already talked enough.
Okay. Sí, quería agregar también.
I wanted to add as well the following. I think we're having this conversation after everything that's happened. You know, this is the first conversation after this brutality, the police brutality, and the community of color. And I think this helped us in a way to have these conversations. A lot of the experiences I read about in the press was experiences that happened at schools and public schools in Hillsburg. And we're talking about experiences that students had in the elementary school, that they had at the junior high level, and they also had at the high school level. So those are experiences that I also had myself as a Latina in high school, that other Latinos have had, other people of color, and other communities of immigrants at the high school level. And I think it's very important that we recognize that racism that we have in schools, that it's a systemic racism. And it starts with the books that we read, the things that we study, what the teachers choose to teach us. When we open our textbook of history, we saw one paragraph about the history of the Native American peoples, and then we have half a page perhaps to Latinos, Latinas, Latinx. And so there's a lack of culture that's obvious. When I was in school, I remember that on Wednesdays, it was always a Wednesday that I noticed that on Wednesdays, I don't want to be rude, but it was the Hicks, the Hicks would show up with their flags, and they would, like Mustafa, I don't want to say Americans, but they were students, right? They were students. They had their flags. They had the Confederate flag, and they would put it on their trucks, and they would go around the entire school with their flag. When a Mexican would take their Mexican flag to school, that flag, they would take it away, or they take it away from them. So, or they'd have to take it off, or somebody would take it away from them. So here, there's a lack of equity here. Like Mustafa says, I graduated as well from high school as well in 2015. And from the 2015, so Mustafa graduated before I did, but when I went to school, we still had one one hallway that was it was basically a paisa. It was for people, us. It was a hallway that was just for the Mexicans, for Latinx, and all the other hallways were the areas. There was a different area for the Americans, so to say. So that division still exists, that divide. I don't think it's changed since I graduated. Another thing, the representation in terms of school. How many black teachers or teachers of colors do we even have? And I did my own I actually looked this up online as well. We have 52% of the students in the schools in Healdsburg are Latin or Latinx, and those students, that percentage has to be reflected as well. And the numbers of the teachers and the percentage of the teachers. If I don't see a teacher of color, who makes me think that I could even be a teacher if I don't have anybody who looks like me? We're telling students that, you know what, you cannot be a teacher. And in our history books, the story history has been written from a point of view that's, they call it Eurocentric. It's Eurocentric. That's the point of view from which history has been written from a certain amount of people, and it's only that point of view. What if we don't write our own story? The Mexican story, the Black story, the Native American stories. There's so many stories, so many histories. We still have to be included in public schools that we have to yet include, that we have not done so. I'd like to add something, perhaps, Crystal, if I have 66%, actually not 52 at Hillsburg, are Latin or Latinx. It's 66% actually currently. And at the high school level, we have, I think, two perhaps teachers that include me that are Latin or Latinx. So that's why that's one of the reasons that I wanted to be a leader at this level, is to really help push this forward. I remember having had a conversation with the superintendent, the one who was there before Chris. I was the vice president of the union back then, and we hired like 20 teachers that year, and it was only one Latin lady. It was a psychologist. She was Latin Hispanic, and we had this talk with the superintendent. I said, what's going on here? What's going on? Why do we only have, it starts with recruiting. Why don't we have more Latinos, Latinas, Latinx, and why don't we have that? And who are the people who are getting the jobs? I thought that was difficult to have that conversation. I wasn't able to change the policy until this vice president until I was the vice president of the union, so we could really work with the school district to really try to get more bilingual people into the district in terms of teaching. And it's the same thing that you're saying, Crystal. It's taken so many years to get to this moment. So for the district to start listening to this, and that's because we don't have Latinx folks who work here in the district who can take this opportunity to become leaders at the leadership level. So the more the better. The more leaders we can have. The conversation of ethnic studies, for example, it's a conversation we've had for many years. It's just been a talk. We've just been conversing. Well, that's where it ends, and at the conversation level, and nothing happens after that. It never goes to a next level unless we have like some external push from the community, for example, or from the students, for students who perhaps are asking for this, perhaps, right? So I'd like to take this opportunity right now, this conversation. Like I said, we've been talking about this for a long time, and we don't want to miss out on this moment, because really the school board at Hillsburg, the district, really I want to tell them this is what we want to do it this way. Because me as a teacher, as a counselor, I've heard this before. Yes, we want to do it, but then they don't do anything. Yes, we want to do it, right, but then nothing ever happens, right? For many years, really. So I'd like the school board. I think there is somebody from the school board here. One of the directors is right here with us, and I'd like for the school board to really take that initiative to say, yes, this is a priority that we have. We'd like for all the students from kindergarten, even before kindergarten, that they really get this infusion of their own culture, the African American culture, of the Native Americans, of the Latinx culture. So they have this pride from the very beginning. Mustafa talked about this earlier, that there's so many students that were in AP classes, and that's not because we pick the students, right? It's because we have a system that this trajectory that puts the students on different paths, and those are the conversations that we have to have with the district and with the teachers, right? And we have to be completely honest, because some teachers are not going to like this conversation because it's very uncomfortable. They put students on different paths instead of being a little bit more inclusive, to really ensure that all the students have the same educational level and the same path, educational path, if they want to work, if they want to go to university, etc. But so there's not this divide that's so visible, that's so obvious, like you were saying, Mustafa, when you were in high school here, it was very obvious for you when you were a student. So those are the conversations we have to have. Those are the conversations we have to have in one single room, and to really ensure that we talk about that, right? And that the district really has this in mind, right? It's something that can be changed in the future, and a not very far away future, like we're saying earlier. I've been at the high school level for 13 years. I talked about this 13 years ago when I first started here, working here as a counselor. I started, and then after so many different administrations that we've had, I've kept on suggesting it, and nothing has happened. So until now, until this time. So I don't want us to miss out on this opportunity right now to keep on going, because we have this conviction, right, of the district, right, that yes, that we want to keep on talking about this. We want to start in kindergarten all the way through high school. That's what we want. I was going to say something, but I can do that afterwards if you want to go ahead first. No, Carla, go ahead. We'd like to hear a little bit about what you think about this conversation. Well, first of all, thank you very much. I'm here to support you in this process, and I don't live that far away. And as Crystal was saying, I was listening to everything that you're saying about the conditions in Hillsborough. It gives me goosebumps, because a legacy project in Napa started because of these tensions in the community, because of the racism that's always existed. These conditions in Healdsburg and Napa, they're very similar, really, historically, very, very similar in terms of demographics as well. Those divisions, those divides. The program actually started 8 years ago. My youngest brother was one of the students in high school, and they were exposed to this tension when the other students would bring the flags, these Confederate flags, and then they would bring theirs, like you were saying, Crystal. It's the same thing that happened here, this issue with the flag. And it took the community, and there was just this risk, to really make changes and to really dedicate ourselves to a program that 8 years ago we didn't know what exactly was going to be, but now, like, seeing the path and how it's transformed completely our community. So I wanted to mention two things. First off, I think you're in the perfect moment. This is the right time to create something, and I think it's very, very important. That's great to see so many people that are here participating in this conversation, and also that they're here with us sharing this, because a program like an ethnic studies program, and I define it really like a cultural and political studies program, because the definition, really, the direct definition, the definition of ethnic studies doesn't really have anything to do with it. But I think it needs to be a little bit of everything. Everybody puts a little bit of everything. Everybody puts a little bit, their grain of salt, or their little piece of the pie, right? Because it's just we can only make this happen if we can sustain this, we can create this, we can make it happen, when it takes all of us, and to really to be the owners of these projects. Or if something happens, or perhaps the leadership level changes, or whatever, or the teachers changes perhaps, or many of you go different ways, but this program will keep on existing because the community was part of it. The community kept on being part of creating this. If somebody wants to change it, and then they understand that there's a community level value. So I'd like to say that I just want to honor this, that you're in the perfect moment right now. This is the right time to take action with the students and to listen to them. What do they want? What do they want to learn? And to parents and to teachers, and also it's very important to have teachers that look like us, but also that are that also the community of white people, that they should be our allies, and so they recognize that they have a role to play in understanding the privilege that they have, and that they have the burden of helping teach this. And something that I wanted to mention as well, when you have a program like this, when there's a program that's community based, and like the culture and sharing the culture, the political aspects, and also the diversity of cultures, like as Chris mentioned, Crystal, you can have books full of information about our history, where we came from. It's this transformation that's created by that is truly remarkable. We have seen this here, we've seen this in our community in Napa, and it's been a great honor for me to be able to share and to teach this curriculum here at the district, and the transformation that happens, really the metamorphosis, will take us to a different world. These conversations will be very different in the future, and the self-esteem, students' self-esteem grows. They feel better. I've had that same experience when I was student. It validated my identity more, what it meant to me eat beans at home, and speak Spanish, and go to school, speak English, and have pizza and all these different things, and to really understand those two worlds better. Also knowing that I'm relatively I'm kind of a white person. Everybody thinks I'm a gringo all the time, but my brothers and sisters are a little bit darker skinned. So these studies changed my life, and I've seen how they've transformed the lives of our young people. They feel more empowered. They feel like they're stronger. They're more confident. We help them prepare for the world, because not all of them will accept it. Will accept them, but if they feel good, if their self-esteem, if they feel good in their own bodies, they know what their value is. That there's no words for how important that is, and that's going to help us have a more positive world going forward. If we don't do this, if we don't act now, it's going to be more difficult. It's going to be more difficult. It's cost lives. It's going to cause racism. It's going to cause pain, more trauma, and we all know what that it's a whole life that we have to try to heal from traumatic events, has been mentioned, like in those schools. So it takes a lifetime to heal that. So thank you for letting me be here. I'm here to listen. I'm here to support you and to listen to you, and to keep on following your footsteps in your leadership from what you're creating, and that's going to help. It's going to transform several generations. So thank you. I'm very, very excited to see what actions you will take, and to see what this will take you, that we can all do together. We all can create something very, very big. It can be very small, and then it can get big. So thank you very much. So you're gonna hate me. What you're talking about, these paths, whatever was talking about these paths with different people. So what's going on is that it happens that with people, until Latinos, Latinas, Latinx, until they start doing things. It's not like a certain group. Let's say Chris is a good example. Crystal wants to be a teacher, right? So ever saying, yeah, you want to be there aren't enough Latinx teachers, right? That's what Ever was saying. So Ever should be having a leadership position. So we have Ever. So Ever can be at that level, and he could influence that to help everybody. So there are a lot of things that start that we can do. Another thing that's really important, we have to say, if you have 10 people that applied for that American for this job, and then there's 10 Mexican people, are they gonna hire the 10 Mexicans if they are not as good? Let's talk equal. Let's say this person is Mexican and he's not very good, and let's say this person is American and he or she's very good. Are they gonna hire the Mexican person just to have more Mexicans? So that's also racism in a way, right? So that's something we need to think about. As Mexicans, we have to, or Latin or Latinx, we have to really work really hard to make sure we get to that level, to that high level, to make sure that we can beat them to it, so to say. So what happens with time it's not a linear. Time is not linear. It's a circle. It's a circle that repeats itself, and the circle keeps on moving, and it keeps on moving forward with energy. We keep on seeing what's happening, what's happened before, the things that what you have been talking about earlier, like different programs, for example, these books and all these issues. All that, in my opinion, that's all a very, very good thing, and we need to make sure we do different things like that. So these books and these classes that's one thing, but for them to take the books, for them to really take those classes, that's like a different issue. That's a disconnect there. And I think that's the problem. As Latin and Latinx, we've always hit our head against this proverbial wall. We can give them these things, but if they don't want to participate in that, so there's nothing that they can't improve themselves, and they can't really get better, and they can't really improve their communities either. So we need to be really careful with that, because at the same time we don't want to be racist on our end, because then it goes into this circle, right? This vicious circle of how everything happens. So what we're seeing right now with Latin and Latinx and Hispanics is that what we saw a long time ago with other populations, it's almost the same thing. If you study the history, what happened with Latinos in this county, what happened with the Italians is is happening now. If you went to school here, and if you have family, Italian family, for example, they're gonna tell you the same stories, very similar stories, and they grew as a community, and doing that, what's going on is that they were manipulated by them. They grab the Americans and they say, "Hey, we are leaders for the Latins," but they don't.
Son latinos, gente que está en esta
They never want to see them grow. They never want to see the Latin community go up. We see that in political jobs. They don't want to see ever as a leader. They don't want to see ever in the leadership position he should be in. They don't want that. They don't want anything to happen ever. So that's another issue. That's another way of racism, right? So and that's where it starts. So when, as a community, we can do these things, the things that Crystal is doing,
de ella, en mi opinión, es mucho más grande del impacto que...
the impact of people who wants to give money, for example, she's making a really, really big change. She's not doing it because she has pity. She's doing it because she, in my opinion, she has this moral obligation to give back to her people. That's I'm not going to ask the Americans for the money because of the white privilege and all that, because they feel like they're obligated in a way that they have to give something. But giving away things to somebody, it's also racism in a way, because the people, if you don't give one person the opportunity to develop themselves, so they will always then depend on other people. And before I stop here, we can see this in different communities. For example, Black Lives Matters, all these different things that are happening that the government has been trying to do to help them. It's not to help by giving them stuff. It's really more to help them to give them different options. That's really it. So they have these different paths that Ever was talking about. So that's a good thing. So that they have the opportunities, that they have the resources that are necessary to go to keep on going. And it's if they don't have that at home, it's very possible that they're not going to go in this path that they need to go in a good direction. It's very possible. Thank you. I totally agree with you. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I know that we're almost come to the end of our conversation, but I wanted to go back to what Carla said earlier, that I'm very excited that we're have this conversation right now to see what kind of actions we can take together. So just to finish this, I would like to ask you really, to the school district really, ask the following question: what's needed? What do we need to do? How can we help you to make sure that you can be dedicated really? How can we do these ethnic studies in the schools so they can be applied in Hillsburg? How can we do that? What's the reason that it's not been implemented? Is it because there's a lack of funding? Is it because is there some other reason perhaps? Could you perhaps share that with us? But at the end of the day, the question is, what can we do to help so this could be implemented? What do we need? What can the district do, and what can we do to help? Thank you for the question. I support that. Absolutely. I want to say more than anything. I think at the time for ethnic studies is now. Now is the time. We have worked very, very hard on equality. We closed the charter school because of equity issues, equality. Then this is a perfect step to do. As Ever said earlier, I'd like to see a required class, but more than anything, just to revise the curriculum that we have starting at kindergarten all the way to high school, to make sure that we're not so ethnocentric, that we don't keep on being as ethnocentric as we have been in our teaching. It's not the system, the Hillsburg only. It's an issue of all the schools in the United States. It's a curriculum that we have currently through the state level, and we have to improve on that. In terms of support, I can tell you that I have the support of our school board currently. They support me going ahead with this. What we do need now would be help from experts. I've been looking around a little bit. I've been investigating, looking into organizations, the organization that Carla works with, and their programs that they have. I've been looking into that. I think it's very great what they do. I think you're working in Santa Rosa and the schools there, right? In Santa Rosa, right? So what I like really about the way that you visualize a curriculum is, I think that you're inspired really of Paula Curry and his conscious upbringing. I think it's very important to have political issues and culture, but the most important thing I believe that we're preparing our children for, our students for, is to analyze their life and their context and to make changes if necessary. So changes and the community that's been done in our schools has been very profound. And like I said earlier, now is the time, now is the moment, this is the right moment to do so. We need support of experts like Carla and her team, and also I understand that perhaps there's some scholarships through Corazon that we could go to give to our teachers so they can have a new class at the high school level. We need a lot of time to plan a new class because it has to be approved through the University of California, the system. So usually we take about 6 to 8 months or so to plan this class and to implement it. So that would be the first step, and then we'd have to investigate to figure out how we can change our curriculum starting with the kindergarten level. That will be the next step. But so really, expert help was more than anything what we need really. But we're very excited. We're very excited at working about this. Like I said earlier, I absolutely have the support of the school board in this issue, absolutely. And thank you to Corazon for offering us the support as well. We much appreciate it.
Chris, dices que el momento.
Chris, you're saying the moment is now, and I think so. The moment should have been 10, 20, 30 years ago, really. That would have been the right time, really. The first moment when we had an accident with Black people, when we had an issue, that's when we should have started with ethnic studies, with cultural studies, and more than anything, it should have been that. We have to focus, really. We have to focus in giving information to people of color and to Hispanics and Latinx. Education is important, and I always tell that to high school students that they may be down and they may not want to keep on going to school because they're disappointed, but we have to send them a message to students. I tell them, as I'm a first generation student, I was the very first one to attend high school. I was the first one who's graduate. There's some trauma there of being the first person, right? Because you have to navigate public schools. And now that I'm first generation, I can give some information to my siblings what to do, what not to do in school. But I think there's a lack of culture in the terms of the teachers too in California and all of it, and in the entire country. I think there's a lack of culture. I think in the schools there's a lack of training when it comes to teachers in terms of culture from other people and cultures of people of color, because we've got this trauma, and this trauma has been because of school. I don't want to say that it's directly schools of Healdsburg. It's the entire university schools nationwide. I'm not saying it's unique to our area. This trauma comes from these differences that we had to navigate on our own, because we did not have the support from our parents, because they were not able to navigate this. My parents and all the other parents that they're navigating this issue, they give you this trust, because they trust the schools. They trust that the schools are going to do the best thing for the students. And when that does not happen, when that breaks down, it creates a trauma that when we're in school at the university level as well, we have to unlearn that. We have to forget everything we learned in high school, of all the history that they taught us in high school, because that's not how things were. Then we go to university or school or whatever, and we start forming our own opinions and these ethnical studies and cultural classes, and then we have to use our funds so they can tell us our own story. And so there's something there's something problematic about that issue, right? I think you have to start from the beginning, from when you start kindergarten or even preschool. We have to start sharing, teach the culture here in California and every state in the U.S. and in Latin America. I think it's important, like you said earlier, as everybody has said, we have to update the curriculum. We have to, right now that we have the schools, it needs to be updated.
¿Me pueden escuchar? Porque
Can you hear me? I was good. One of the things I really would have loved to do in high school for Chris and Ever, I would have loved, because I lived in Cloverdale when I was going to Hillsborough High. I would have loved it if it had been possible to take a class through online, an internet class, perhaps ethnic studies, if I could get credit for that for high school, something like that. I would have absolutely loved to do that. I think that would have been very easy, because if you get credits for high school, if you go to school, and if I think that's great if you get credit. I think that's good. That's important for the school as well, and also it also puts the school in a better position for the future as well, because in the future I think that a lot of people think that high school has to, you have to treat it more like university, not so much like high school, right? Or a lot of things with the high school level, they're passe. So especially now with COVID-19, but it's cheap. You can get the best teachers wherever they are, and you can do it. Hey, ethnic studies class, let's do this class, and we're going to give you these credits, and you take this class with whoever, the famous teacher. It doesn't even have to be famous, but then you can really play with all these different ideas when you have something like that. You can play around a bit with that. Thank you. Yes. I am 100% in agreement with all what you're saying, all of you, absolutely. So we know that there's a lot to be done to really fight racism in our schools, and it's great to hear that Chris has the support of the school board in order to really start talking about the planning, how we can implement these ethnic studies at the school level. So my wish is that the next time that we have the opportunity to talk like this for the community, that hopefully it would be to keep on going this conversation forward, but more with having a plan, a plan that's ready to be implemented, so we can perhaps comment on that, so we can see what the actual plan is, because we know that in addition to this, we want to make sure what's being chosen as a curriculum. So that's what I wish that we can all be part of this opportunity, and to implement ethnic studies in school. So if there's parents right now or students that are with us on this call, if you have any sort of comments or tips, please go ahead and send us a private inbox, or send or do a comment on Facebook, or just shoot us a quick message if you're on Zoom. Just you can welcome to put that in the chat box as well. So I'd like to thank all of the panelists who are here with us tonight. We know that this conversation is not an easy one, so this is a really good opportunity, really good first conversation. We know that 1 hour is not enough to talk about everything that we have, our experiences. It's not enough, and what our wishes are for the future. But I think it is. I think it's a good start. I think it's a good start. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time being here with us. Thank you very much. And we're going to continue this fight, and we're going to continue working together, like I said earlier, to fight racism in our school and at the local level. We're going to keep on doing that. So thank you very much for being with us. I really appreciate it. And next Wednesday, we're going to have another chat. Next Wednesday, it's going to be 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So we invite you to this conversation. It's going to be about DACA and members of our community. So you'll be here with us to explore DACA, the problems that are in terms of immigration, racism, and et cetera, and also the positive contribution that we can make to the economy in our society here in the United States. So next Wednesday, 6 p.m., we will be ready for you here as well on Facebook Live with Corazon Hillsburg. Thank you very much. Thank you very much again to all the panelists. I really appreciate wholeheartedly everything you've done for us. Thank you so much for being for us, and those who are listening, watching. Thank you so much. Good evening, and let's see you soon. See you next week. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. See you soon. Goodbye. Thank you.